Episode 2, The Autumn Stroll. The morning light trickled into the cottage slowly, casting long shadows that stretched across the wooden floors. Ella stirred beneath her blankets, blinking as the soft glow of the autumn sun gently coaxed her awake. The fire from the night before had burned low, leaving only the faintest warmth behind, but the cool air didn't bother her. In fact, she welcomed it. There was something about the crispness of fall mornings that made her feel alive, like the world outside was brimming with possibility. With a soft sigh, Ella slipped out of bed, the cold floorboards a quick reminder of the changing season. She pulled on her favorite knit sweater, one she had brought with her year after year, its sleeves stretched from use, its fibers softened by time. There was comfort in the familiar weight of it, in the way it wrapped around her like a hug. The trees outside the window were bathed in shades of orange, red, and gold, their leaves rustling softly in the breeze. It was the perfect day for a walk, something Ella looked forward to each morning during her stay at the cottage. The world outside was quiet, undisturbed, and as she stepped out of the door, the cool air nipped at her cheeks, waking her senses in the most pleasant way. The path that led away from the cottage wound through the forest, a narrow trail that seemed to have been carved out by time. The fallen leaves crunched softly beneath her boots, each step a reminder of the season's slow transformation. The air was thick with the smell of earth and pine, and the occasional gust of wind would send a flurry of leaves cascading from the treetops, dancing in the air before settling on the ground around her. As Ella walked, her mind wandered, drifting like the leaves on the breeze. She had always loved this path, the way it felt untouched, almost sacred. The trees here were old, their trunks thick and knotted, their branches stretching high into the sky, like silent sentinels watching over the forest. There was a timelessness to this place, a feeling that no matter how much the world outside changed, this little corner of the earth remained the same. She paused for a moment, closing her eyes and listening to the sounds of the forest, the soft chirping of birds in the distance, the rustle of leaves as the wind moved through the trees, and beneath it all, the steady rhythm of her own breath. It was a kind of quiet that she rarely found anywhere else, a quiet that allowed her to simply be. As she continued along the path, she came to a small clearing, one she had discovered years ago on her very first visit to the cottage. It was her favorite spot, a place where the trees opened up just enough to let the sunlight pour in, warming the earth beneath her feet. A large, flat rock sat at the center of the clearing, its surface smooth and inviting, and Ella made her way toward it, settling down with a contented sigh. From her seat on the rock, she could see the forest stretch out before her, a sea of colors that seemed to glow in the morning light. She reached into her pocket, pulling out a small notebook and a pencil, both worn from use. This had become a part of her ritual during her stays at the cottage, coming to the clearing, sitting on the rock, and letting her thoughts spill onto the page. But today, as she sat there with her notebook resting on her lap, Ella didn't feel the usual pull to write. Instead, she let the silence of the forest speak for itself. She watched as a squirrel darted across the ground, gathering acorns and stashing them away for the coming winter. A bird, its feathers a bright splash of red against the muted tones of the trees, flitted from branch to branch, singing a soft, lifting tune. Ella smiled to herself, feeling a deep sense of peace wash over her. She had always found comfort in nature, in its quiet rhythms and its steady, unhurried pace. It reminded her that not everything in life needed to be rushed, that sometimes the best thing you could do was simply sit, breathe, and let the world move around you. The sun had risen higher now, its warmth a gentle contrast to the coolness of the air. Ella tilted her face toward it, closing her eyes and letting the light soak into her skin. She could feel the tension in her body slowly melt away, replaced by a calm that seemed to reach down into her very bones. After a while, she stood, tucking her notebook back into her pocket. The day was still young, and she had the rest of the morning to explore. But for now, she was content to simply walk, to let the quiet of the forest and the beauty of the season surround her. As she made her way back along the path, the leaves continued to fall, swirling gently in the breeze, a reminder of the constant, quiet change that was always happening, both in nature and in herself. And with each step, Ella felt a little lighter, a little more in tune with the world around her, and ready to embrace whatever the rest of the day had in store.